John Wick had faced countless foes, each more formidable than the last, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The legendary assassin, known for his unyielding resolve and unmatched skill, lay motionless in a dark alley, his breath shallow and his vision fading. The moonlight cast an eerie glow over the scene, highlighting the blood-soaked pavement around him. In his final moments, John's mind raced through memories of his wife, Helen, whose death had set him on this relentless path of vengeance. He remembered their quiet mornings together, the warmth of her smile, and the peace she had brought to his turbulent life. As the world around him dimmed, John felt a sense of acceptance, a resignation to his fate. He had avenged her, and perhaps now, he could finally join her. But as the shadows closed in, a figure emerged from the darkness. Sophia, an old ally and fierce warrior, knelt beside him, her face a mask of determination. "John," she whispered urgently, "stay with me. We need you." John's vision blurred, but he could make out the concern in her eyes. He wanted to tell her it was too late, that his time had come, but the words wouldn't form. Instead, he felt a strange sense of calm, a fleeting moment of peace amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a series of distant footsteps echoed through the alley. Sophia's head snapped up, her expression shifting to one of alarm. She drew her gun, ready to defend her fallen friend. The footsteps grew louder, and the faint outlines of several figures appeared at the mouth of the alley. The high table had found them. Sophia's grip tightened on her weapon as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation. She glanced down at John, his breathing now barely perceptible, and a steely resolve took hold. "They won't take you, John," she vowed. "Not like this." As the figures stepped into the light, Sophia rose to meet them, her heart pounding in her chest. The leader of the group, a cold-eyed man with a cruel smile, stopped a few feet away, his gaze fixed on John. "The Baba Yaga has fallen," he announced, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "And now, we will finish what he started." Sophia's eyes blazed with fury. "Over my dead body," she spat, raising her gun. The man chuckled darkly. "That can be arranged." The tension in the air was palpable as the two sides faced off, the fate of the legendary John Wick hanging in the balance. Sophia didn't wait for the high table enforcers to make the first move. She fired a precise shot, taking out the leader before he could react. The alley exploded into chaos as bullets flew, ricocheting off the walls and creating a cacophony of noise that echoed through the narrow space. Despite her fierce resolve and formidable skills, Sophia was outnumbered. She moved with deadly grace, each shot finding its mark, but the enforcers kept coming. As she fought, she could feel her strength waning, the relentless assault pushing her to the brink. John's eyes fluttered open, the sounds of the battle piercing through his haze of pain. He could see Sophia fighting for their lives, her determination unwavering. Summoning every ounce of strength he had left, John reached for a gun that had fallen nearby. His fingers closed around the grip, and with a Herculean effort, he managed to lift it. The enforcers didn't notice John stirring, their focus entirely on Sophia. She had taken down several of them, but a new wave of attackers was advancing. Just as one of them raised his weapon to shoot her, a gunshot rang out, and he crumpled to the ground. Sophia glanced back, her eyes widening in surprise and relief. John, pale and bleeding, was sitting up, his gun trained on the remaining enforcers. "John," she shouted, a mix of shock and hope in her voice. The enforcers hesitated, their confidence shaken by the sight of the legendary assassin back in action. Seizing the moment, Sophia and John coordinated their attacks, each covering the other's weaknesses. Despite his injuries, John's shots were as precise as ever, each bullet finding its target with lethal accuracy. The last of the enforcers fell, and a tense silence settled over the alley. Sophia rushed to John's side, her face etched with concern. "John, we need to get you out of here," she said urgently. "There's no time to lose." John nodded weakly, his strength fading once more. Sophia hoisted him up, supporting his weight as they stumbled towards the end of the alley. They needed to find a safe place, somewhere they could regroup and tend to John's wounds. As they reached the street, the sound of sirens in the distance sent a chill down Sophia's spine. The high table wouldn't give up easily, and their reach was long. She scanned the area, looking for an escape route, when a familiar black car screeched to a halt beside them. The door flew open, and Winston, the manager of the Continental Hotel, leaned out. "Get in," he barked, his usual composure replaced by urgency. "We don't have much time." Sophia and John scrambled into the car, and Winston sped off, weaving through the city streets with practiced ease. As they drove, Winston glanced at John in the rearview mirror, his expression grim. "You're not done yet, John," he said quietly. "The high table won't stop until they know you're gone for good. But we have a plan." John's vision was fading again, but he managed a faint nod. "What plan?" he rasped. Winston's eyes hardened. "We're going to take the fight to them," he replied. "Once and for all." As the car raced towards an uncertain future, the city lights blurring into streaks of color, John felt a flicker of hope. The fight was far from over, and with allies like Sophia and Winston by his side, perhaps he still had a chance to end this war. Winston's car sped through the labyrinthine streets of the city, heading towards a hidden safe house known only to a select few. As they drove, Winston explained the details of their plan. "The high table has made a grave mistake by underestimating us," he said, his eyes flickering with determination. "We have allies, people who owe you their lives, John. It's time to call in those debts." John, slumped in the back seat, listened intently. His mind was a whirlwind of pain and resolve, each heartbeat a reminder of his tenuous grip on life. Sophia sat beside him, her hand firmly gripping his, offering silent support. As they reached the outskirts of the city, the car pulled into an unassuming warehouse. Inside, a group of familiar faces awaited them. Among them were old friends, fellow assassins, and even a few former adversaries who respected John enough to join the cause. The air was thick with tension and unspoken resolve. A medic hurried over to John, working quickly to stabilize his injuries. As they worked, Winston addressed the gathered crowd. "The high table believes they are invincible, that they can crush anyone who opposes them," he said, his voice rising with conviction. "But they have never faced anything like us. Tonight, we strike back. For John. For all of us." The crowd murmured in agreement, a collective sense of purpose uniting them. John, now bandaged and slightly stronger, struggled to his feet. "They took everything from me," he rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. "It's time we take everything from them." A ripple of determination spread through the room. Plans were quickly laid out, with each person assigned a specific role in the coming battle. They would strike at the heart of the high table's operations, dismantling their power structure and sending a clear message that their reign of terror was over. As the night deepened, the group prepared for the assault. Weapons were checked and rechecked, strategies reviewed and memorized. John, with Sophia by his side, moved among his allies, offering words of encouragement and gratitude. Winston approached John, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. John met his gaze, his eyes hard and unyielding. "I've never been more ready," he replied. With the first light of dawn, the group set out, their convoy of vehicles slicing through the early morning mist. The target was a heavily guarded mansion on the outskirts of the city, a stronghold of the high table. As they approached, John felt a sense of calm wash over him. This was his destiny, the culmination of everything he had fought for. The convoy came to a halt just outside the mansion's perimeter. Silently, they spread out, taking up their positions. John, Sophia, and Winston led the charge, moving with lethal precision. The first guards fell silently, their bodies crumpling to the ground as the team infiltrated the compound. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The high table's leaders, unaware of the impending assault, were caught off guard as John and his allies burst into the main hall. A fierce battle erupted, the sounds of gunfire and clashing blades echoing through the mansion. John fought with a renewed vigor, each strike driven by the memory of Helen and the desire for justice. Sophia moved beside him, a whirlwind of deadly grace, while Winston orchestrated the assault with strategic brilliance. As they pushed deeper into the mansion, the resistance grew fiercer. High table enforcers, realizing the gravity of the situation, fought back with desperation. But John and his team were relentless, their resolve unshakable. Finally, they reached the inner sanctum, where the high table's most powerful members had gathered. The room was opulent, a stark contrast to the violence that had brought them there. John stepped forward, his gun trained on the head of the high table, an imposing figure who radiated authority and arrogance. "You think you can kill me and end this?" the man sneered, his eyes filled with contempt. John's gaze was steely, his voice cold. "It ends when you're gone," he replied. As the final showdown loomed, the tension in the room reached a breaking point. John knew that this moment would determine the future, not just for him, but for everyone who had joined the fight. The high table's reign of terror had to end, and it would end here, with this confrontation. The air was electric with anticipation. John and his allies stood poised, ready to end the high table's tyranny once and for all. The head of the high table, a man known as the Adjudicator, stared at John with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Do you really think you can change anything, Wick?" the Adjudicator spat. "Even if you kill me, others will take my place." John's eyes narrowed. "Maybe. But not today." With a swift, decisive motion, John fired. The shot rang out, echoing through the opulent hall. The Adjudicator's body slumped to the floor, the life draining from his eyes. For a moment, there was silence, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. Then, chaos erupted. The remaining high table enforcers, driven by a mix of desperation and fury, launched a frenzied counterattack. John and his team moved as one, each person playing their part in the deadly dance. Bullets flew, blades clashed, and the air was filled with the sounds of battle. Sophia was a force of nature, her movements fluid and deadly. She fought beside John, her loyalty and determination shining through every action. Winston, ever the strategist, coordinated their efforts, ensuring their enemies were systematically dismantled. Despite their prowess, the fight was brutal. John felt every wound, every ounce of exhaustion threatening to pull him under. But he pressed on, driven by an unyielding will to see this through. The thought of Helen, and the peace he had once known, fueled his every move. Gradually, the tide began to turn. One by one, the high table's enforcers fell, their numbers dwindling under the relentless assault. John, Sophia, and Winston pushed forward, cutting a path through their enemies. As the last enforcer fell, an eerie quiet settled over the mansion. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. John looked around, taking in the sight of his exhausted, but victorious allies. They had done it, they had struck a blow against the high table that would be felt for years to come. Winston approached John, a weary smile on his face. "We did it," he said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. The high table won't rest until they've avenged this night." John nodded, his expression resolute. "Then we'll be ready. They took everything from us. It's time we return the favor." Sophia, standing beside John, placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll fight together, John. As long as it takes." John felt a sense of camaraderie and hope, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He looked at his friends, his allies, and knew they could face whatever came next. Together, they had the strength to take on the world. As dawn broke, casting a new light on the shattered mansion. John Wick and his allies prepared for the next phase of their war against the High Table. The fight for justice, for peace, and for a future free from the shadow of fear, was just beginning. And John Wick, the legendary assassin, was ready to lead the charge. As the first light of dawn broke over the shattered mansion, John Wick and his allies gathered to regroup. They had struck a significant blow against the High Table, but they all knew this war was far from over. Yet, an unexpected twist of fate awaited them, one that none could have anticipated. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and more intense. The group looked around in confusion, weapons at the ready. Suddenly, a brilliant beam of light descended from the sky, enveloping John and lifting him off the ground. His allies shouted in alarm, but there was nothing they could do as John was pulled upwards into the unknown. John's vision blurred as he ascended, the world around him transforming into a cascade of colors and lights. He felt weightless, suspended in a void that defied comprehension. Then, just as abruptly as it had begun, the sensation stopped. John found himself standing in a vast, alien landscape. The sky was a deep, iridescent purple, dotted with unfamiliar constellations. Towering, bioluminescent plants cast an eerie glow over the terrain, and strange, floating islands drifted lazily above. He was no longer on Earth. A figure approached him, humanoid but distinctly alien, with elongated limbs and shimmering, metallic skin. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence. "Welcome, John Wick," it spoke in a melodic, almost hypnotic voice. "We have brought you here because your skills are needed." John's hand instinctively went to his gun, but the alien raised a hand in a gesture of peace. "Fear not, warrior. We mean you no harm. We are the Astral Council, guardians of this planet, EXOR. A great threat looms over our world, and we believe you are the key to our survival." John narrowed his eyes, assessing the situation. "Why me?" he demanded. "I'm just a man." The alien tilted its head. "You are more than a man. You are a legend, a symbol of resilience and determination. The enemies we face are relentless and powerful. We need someone with your indomitable spirit to lead our forces." As the alien spoke, more beings emerged from the shadows, each one unique but united in their purpose. They watched John with a mixture of hope and reverence. He could feel their desperation, their longing for a savior. John took a deep breath, the reality of his situation sinking in. He had fought all his life, first for vengeance, then for survival. Now, on an alien world, he was being asked to fight again, not just for himself, but for an entire planet. "All right," he said finally, his voice steady. "I'll help you. But I need to know everything about this threat and what I'm up against." The alien nodded, its eyes glowing brighter. "Follow me, and we will explain everything. Time is of the essence." John followed the alien leader, his mind racing. As they moved through the alien landscape, the Astral Council shared their story. They spoke of an ancient evil, a race of conquerors known as the Vorath, who sought to dominate EXOR and harness its unique energy sources. The Vorath were ruthless, their technology far advanced, and their leader, Zeroth, was a warlord feared across galaxies. The council led John to a massive, crystal-like structure that served as their base of operations. Inside, advanced technology hummed and glowed, displaying images of the Vorath forces and their brutal conquests. "We have been fighting a losing battle," the alien leader admitted. "But with your help, we believe we can turn the tide." John studied the displays, his strategic mind already formulating a plan. "I'll need weapons, supplies, and a team I can trust," he said. The alien leader nodded. "We have prepared for this. Our best warriors will join you, and our resources are at your disposal." As preparations began, John felt a strange sense of purpose. This was a new battlefield, with new allies and enemies, but the stakes were higher than ever. He was no longer just fighting for himself or his loved ones, he was fighting for an entire world, a chance to make a difference on a scale he had never imagined. As he geared up, surrounded by his new alien allies, John Wick felt a familiar fire ignite within him. The legendary assassin was ready to face the Vorith and their warlord, Zeroth, head-on. The battle for EXOR was about to begin, and John Wick would stop at nothing to protect his new home. John Wick, now geared up with advanced alien weaponry and accompanied by the elite warriors of the Astral Council, stood on the precipice of a new kind of war. The sky above EXOR was an electric storm of colors, the impending battle casting a foreboding shadow over the alien landscape. The Astral Council's leader, whom John had come to know as Velar, briefed the assembled forces one last time. The Vorith are gathering at their main stronghold. This is our chance to strike a decisive blow and free EXOR from their tyranny. John, flanked by Velar and a formidable warrior named Kira, led the charge as they approached the Vorith's fortress. The stronghold was an imposing structure, bristling with advanced defenses and surrounded by a seemingly impenetrable energy shield. Using the knowledge provided by the Astral Council, John and his team disabled key points of the shield, causing it to flicker and weaken. With a final coordinated assault, the shield collapsed, and they stormed the fortress. Inside, the battle was fierce. The Vorith soldiers, tall and armored with advanced weaponry, met them with brutal resistance. John moved through the chaos with his signature precision and lethal efficiency, every movement a testament to his training and determination. His new alien allies fought beside him, their unique abilities complementing his skills. As they pushed deeper into the fortress, John found himself face to face with Zeroth, the warlord of the Vorith. Zeroth was a towering figure, exuding an aura of menace and power. His eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence as he regarded John. "So, the legendary John Wick has come to challenge me," Zeroth sneered, his voice a rumble that echoed through the chamber. "Do you really think you can stop me?" John's response was a hail of gunfire. Zeroth deflected the bullets with a shimmering energy shield and countered with a blast of plasma. John dove to the side, rolling to his feet and firing again, this time aiming for the warlord's unshielded moments. The two warriors clashed in a brutal exchange of blows and gunfire, each seeking an advantage. Zeroth's strength and advanced technology seemed overwhelming, but John fought with a relentless fury, driven by the need to protect EXOR and its people. The battle raged on, the fortress trembling with the force of their conflict. Finally, in a moment of raw determination, John found an opening. With a swift, powerful strike, he drove a blade, a gift from Velar, into Zeroth's chest. The warlord staggered, his eyes wide with shock and rage, before collapsing to the ground. With Zeroth's fall, the Vorith forces faltered, their morale shattered. The remaining Vorith soldiers were quickly overwhelmed by John's allies, the tide of battle decisively turned. The fortress was theirs. As the dust settled, Velar approached John, his expression one of profound gratitude. "You have done the impossible, John Wick. You have saved EXOR." John, exhausted but resolute, nodded. "It wasn't just me. We all fought together." The people of EXOR, liberated from the Vorith's tyranny, celebrated their newfound freedom. John, though weary, felt a sense of peace and fulfillment he had not known in years. He had once been a man driven by vengeance, but now he was a hero who had fought for something greater than himself. In the days that followed, John helped the Astral Council stabilize their world and prepare for any future threats. His bond with his new allies deepened, and he found a strange sense of belonging among the stars. One evening, as the twin moons of EXOR rose in the sky, John stood on a hill overlooking the liberated landscape. Kira approached, standing beside him in silence for a moment. "What's next for you, John?" she asked quietly. John looked at the horizon, the endless possibilities stretching before him. "I don't know," he admitted. But for now, I'm where I need to be. Kira nodded, a faint smile on her lips. We couldn't have done this without you. Thank you. John turned to her, a rare smile crossing his face. No, thank you. For giving me a chance to fight for something worth fighting for. As the stars twinkled above, John Wick, the legendary assassin, stood ready for whatever the future held, his journey taking him far beyond anything he had ever imagined. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope.